Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Koki of the Seahawks Recap Show, and welcome back to the final game recap of the preseason Seahawks versus Browns. And it was a late one on the East Coast. The game ended at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I was happy to stay up for it because this was the most entertaining preseason game finale that I have watched. And, it's always fun watching the Seahawks and Browns play. High explosive, high energy, and it was just a really good game to watch. But I'm just here to recap it for you guys. So before I ramble on a little too much in the intro, let's get in to recapping the preseason finale Seahawks versus Browns as they were at Lumen Field and at home for this game. So, game summary, the Seahawks win it out 37-33 and a lot of points in this game. Let's start off with the Seahawks first because they were the home team. Total yards, the Seahawks had 278. Passing yards, they had 151. Rushing yards, they had 127 yards per play. They had 6.2 yards per play, had 16 first downs, 0 for 7 on third down efficiency. That needs to be addressed. But, it is the final game of the preseason, so hopefully they can address that before the start of the regular season. They went 0 for 1 on fourth down, had 45 total plays, 2 sacks allowed, 3 punts, 9 penalties for 85 yards given up, 0 fumbles, 0 interceptions, and 24 minutes and 29 seconds of possession time. For the Cleveland Browns, they had 395 total yards, 292 passing yards, 103 rushing yards, 5.2 yards per play, 24 first downs. They went 5 for 16 on third down. They went 2 for 4 on fourth down, had 76 total plays, 4 sacks allowed, 4 punts, 8 penalties for 98 yards given up, 0 fumbles lost, 0 interceptions thrown, and they had 35 minutes and 31 seconds of possession time. A lot of penalties in this game, but that just shows that there's a lot of high intensity for guys trying to make the 53-man rosters and trying to stay in the NFL. I understand the penalties, but not great to see from an organizational standpoint for both teams on the penalty front. Let's get to Ryan's focus players, and let's start off with the Seahawks. And I'm going to go with QB Sam Howell for this one. 6 for 9, had 45 total yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So his stat line doesn't look impressive. But honestly, Sam Howell has shown me throughout this preseason that he's matured as a quarterback. And in this game, he had some very good plays. He's always had great arm talent, and he's made good decisions with the football, not just throughout this game, but the entire preseason. He threw a ball up that shouldn't have been called back. I know it was holding on Christian Haynes, but it was a 70-yard dot to Cody White. And if that stood, it just shows the flashes that Sam Howell has. And it was a great game from him, despite his stats not looking like it. But let's get to the running back and let's get to George Halani. 7 carries, 38 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. And this guy is making his case for RB3. Him and Kenny McIntosh have showed out this preseason, and I really like George Halani. Michael Robertson on the broadcast was talking about his contact balance, and what that means is that when he gets hit, he still drives the ball forward. He reminds me a lot of, any power back nowadays that can just bounce off tackles, break tackles, and try to get as many yards as he can before he just falls to the ground. And George Holani really has shown out in this preseason as well. He's done very well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mike McDonald and the rest of this Seahawks team has a really hard decision to make between George Holani and Kenny McIntosh as the third running back for the Seahawks. But let's talk about wide receiver D. Eskridge, 3 receptions, 19 yards, 6.3 yards per reception, 0 touchdowns. And again, stat line doesn't look impressive, but D. Eskridge is fighting for his job here with the Seahawks. The fourth-year player out of Western Michigan is fighting, and he's had a lot of issues with the Seahawks over his career. When he was brought in, concussions, injuries, off the field issues. But he showed out in this game. His stats might not show it from a wide receiver perspective, but his kick return ability is what makes him special. We'll get to that in my final thoughts. But, he could be a guy that, again, makes it very difficult for the Seahawks to go, who do we keep at wide receiver? Do we keep 5 or do we keep 6 guys? And who do we keep? So a good game from Eskridge, considering that he hasn't played most of this preseason. Let's get to the Seahawks defense and let's get to D lineman Jamie Sheriff, 3 solo tackles, 0 assisted, 2 sacks, no forced fumbles. And if you watched my video yesterday on thanking Darrell Taylor, you will realize that I talked about Jamie Sheriff in that video, talking about how he could be the next Darrell Taylor in the sense that he is a pass rusher through and through, and this guy might just play himself into a backup role with the Seahawks as a rotational pass rusher. This guy has made some big plays this preseason, and in this game, no different. The 2 sacks, the hustle, the way this guy is able to just shred blocks. He's a big guy, and I'm so happy to have him on the team, and I would not be surprised if he makes the 53-man roster. I want him to make this 53. But let's talk about DB and let's talk about the Auburn corner, DJ James. 5 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 1 sack, no interceptions. And here's the corner. Here is the corner that is going to make something special for the Seahawks. This guy, tackling machine, secure tackles, people that I wanted on this team, especially after last year. The tackling on this secondary was not good enough. So the Seahawks go out and get 2 Auburn corners in the draft this year. Both can tackle, both have shown out, but DJ James is the guy I'm highlighting because he was exceptional in this game, getting a sack. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 5th or 6th corner for this team. He deserves those spots. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with DJ James. Great game from him. And speaking of a great game, it's linebacker Pat O'Connell that I'm highlighting here. 7 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. But looking at the linebacker situation for the Seahawks, there is some opening in this depth chart because Jerome Baker has had some issues since getting to Seattle, some injury issues, some lingering hamstring issues. So Pat O'Connell really is showing out and going, okay, if Jerome Baker's not able to go and we have to put him on IR, I could come in, play a couple games, play a couple weeks, and still be okay. He's a very good tackler, very secure in his tackles. He runs with full head of steam, has some big hits when he needs to. And I think as maybe an outside linebacker or a middle linebacker, whatever you want to use him as, I think he would fit that role. Limit his sample size, a little bit, kind of protect him, shelter him a little bit. But I think this guy would not be opposed to some big minutes. So I would be surprised if he doesn't at least make the practice squad this season. Maybe he can make the 53 this year because last season he did very well for himself. To the Browns, and let's move to QB Dorian Thompson Robertson, and he was great. 11 for 20, 115 yards, one touchdown to the rookie Jeremiah Thrash. And that touchdown he threw, I believe, I can't remember if it was a 50-yard touchdown or something. It was something big. And, Dorian Thompson has done amazing. He's 24 years old, and honestly, he was put in some games last year. Didn't do great on the stat sheet, didn't look very comfortable, but as a rookie, he was thrown into a situation. The Browns were in pandemonium, and now this guy coming into the final preseason game looked decent. He was making some decent throws and, has shown that he could be a third string or a second string guy potentially for this Browns team, just in case they need five quarterbacks this season as well. So good game from Dorian Robertson. I think he's shown that he can be a really good quarterback, and it's a bright future for the Browns quarterback room. But let's get to the running back, and let's get to Aiden Robbins. 8 carries, 38 yards, 4.8 yards per carry, 0 touchdowns. And this guy, what I can say about this guy is that he was big in that second half for the Browns. Just a guy who was barreling through the D line of the Seahawks. This guy is big. This guy is strong. This guy has some great ability just to punch through defensive line. And I get it's preseason. I'm hyping these guys up a little much, but these guys are fighting for their jobs and their NFL careers. So they're putting out tape for every team in the NFL right now. And I think Aiden Robbins could, in a situation, be very useful as maybe a third down back or a power back. So good game from him, showing some strength out there. And let's talk about his second year wide receiver, Michael Woods, 5 receptions, 53 yards, 10.6 yards per reception, and the 2 touchdowns, I believe both by Tyler Huntley in the second half of this game. And this guy, just physical on the football. The final play for the Browns, I think it was with 15 seconds left in the fourth quarter. He just made a very good play, a very good touchdown play where he just was like, okay, Tyler Huntley's going to throw it to me in the end zone, and I'm just going to go up there and catch it and destroy everything. And that's what you want. You want a guy that's physical on the ball at the point of contact and not afraid to, take a hit. And I think this guy, Michael Woods, could be a very good option for the Cleveland Browns if they decide to keep him on the 53. Michael Woods, a guy that's strong, physical, can run good enough routes, and can break tackles when he needs to. So good game from him. But let's get to the Browns defense. D lineman Isaiah Thomas, 2022 seventh round draft pick, 1 solo tackle, 2 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles. And this guy on the D line was doing well. His stats don't look like it, but a lot of pressure applied to the Seahawks. He's a guy that you're fighting again for your life. So making that good impression. It doesn't look like you're doing much on the stat sheet, but trust me, there are some things that don't show up on the stat sheet, like pressures and the amount of effort that you're putting in. So I think it was a good game from this Browns D lineman. But let's talk about Chris Edmonds, the safety. 3 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. One of the NFL broadcasters, Seahawks broadcasters, was calling his name a lot during this preseason final, and this guy was making the tackles that was needed. He was in on almost every tackle he could find. As a safety, your job is to probably not make so many big tackles, but this guy was in the box. He was coming down, trying to stop the run, and he was successful in that. So good game from Chris Edmonds. But let's get to linebacker Muhammad Diabetes. I'm sorry if I butchered his name there, but three solo tackles, zero assisted, one sack, and no interceptions. And this sack was something else. This guy is big. He's a former Florida Gator, and he's a freak of nature. You know, these linebackers, a lot of these linebackers are, and most linebackers are tackling machines. That's big. That's a big word that I always use. It's a kind of a buzzword for how well some of these guys can tackle. And this guy setting up pressures like it was nothing. You know, gets the one sack, and that could be the difference between making the 53 and not. And if he doesn't make the Browns 53, guess what? He's now put out tape for every NFL team out there. I bet he'll make someone's 53 or even the practice squad. So good game from the linebacker. Ryan's final thoughts and what went well. The offense was super explosive for this final preseason game. It was great to watch. From a defensive perspective, just a really great tackling and pressure applied to the Browns offensive line, helping us win this game. Also, shout out to the special teams. Jay Harbaugh has been brilliant for this special teams unit. You know, D. Eskridge, I told you I was going to get back to him. 79-yard punt return. That was just amazing to see in the first half from a guy that's trying to fit on this team, for a guy that's had injury after injury. You know, punt returns is a way to get on this team. Being a special teamer is a way to get on football teams. So good job from him. And Jason Myers, again, a perfect field goal percentage in this preseason. I believe he's either 7 for 7 or 6 for 6. And, you know, people were talking about, oh, but he's missed some extra points. He missed some extra points this preseason, but he's a good field goal kicker. I really like him. You know, hit from 58 in this game. That was his long for this game. So good job overall from the Seahawks team. I'm so ready for the regular season and ready to see the starters for this team. What to improve on? Although we played a great game and I'm happy with the win, there were some mental lapses on defense, and it was mostly between the communication between the safeties who were out there. Jermaine Thrash, he is a guy that should not have been able to just split the Seahawks defense in the first half. That was something that was insane. You know, it's just insane to watch the amount of mental lapses that the safeties had, but they buckled down and tried their best, but there was just a lot of open field as well. So defense needs to tighten up. I'm betting those kind of mental lapses will be fixed before the regular season is upon us. And another thing, if you've watched any of my game recaps from last season, you know that I hate penalties with a passion, and there were a lot of them for this Seahawks team. It was bad, especially on third downs. Some of these penalties were just avoidable. Sam Howell would have had a touchdown in this game, a 70-yard touchdown to Cody White, like I mentioned before. But it was called back because Christian Haynes held a D lineman for the Browns, and that negated the touchdown that was called back. And that's the kind of thing where you're just like, oh man, I know you're a rookie, but you need to not make those mistakes. And another drive that I can look at and go, you know, you should have gotten off the field for the defense this time on third down was the big hit by Lance Boykin. He hit, I forget who he hit, but he hit somebody and he made the big hit and he got a taunting penalty because he stood up after the hit, looked at the guy he hit, and just was taunting him, basically. And that, again, isn't allowed in the NFL. You can debate whether that call is needed or anything like that, but it is an unsportsmanlike call now. So, Something like that just needs to be cleaned up. I know you're excited. I know you're full of adrenaline. I know that you're trying to fight for a spot on this roster, but those penalties just can't happen, especially when after that penalty happened, they get a new set of downs, the Browns, and they score right after that play. So just some of these issues need to be fixed. Overall, this was a fantastic game from both teams. The Seahawks, glad we could get the win in this final preseason game. We looked great this preseason. I hope that this preseason play is just an indication of how good this Seahawks team will do in the regular season. Again, a lot of backups, a lot of third stringers. But if the third stringers and the backups are doing this well, I can't wait to see the main team on the field this regular season. I have hope. I have hope in this team. I'm buying into the hype because if I don't believe in this Seahawks team, why am I here as a fan? But for the Browns, man, the Browns, they've gone through a lot of adversity. They went through a lot of adversity last season, having five quarterbacks and eventually taking Joe Flacco off the couch and having to use him to get to the playoffs. But man, you guys are so competitive. You guys are so scrappy. I know this preseason was very underwhelming because you guys lost your games, but you guys have some fire in you. The way you guys scrap in this game, you guys kept it competitive to the very end. And if you just come in with that spirit, your team is very good on the defensive side of the ball. You got Myles Garrett there, who's always been a freak of nature, but you guys got also Kevin Stefanski, two-time Coach of the Year winner, and this team looks good. The quarterback situation, Tyler Huntley, Jameis Winston, you've got Dorian Thompson Robertson, who's looking good. So those guys are looking real good. So if your backups are looking good, I think you guys will be just fine. You guys, I think, can make the playoffs with the team you have. You just need to keep on doing what you've been doing for the last 2 years now and just keep fighting for every scrappy win you guys can get. But, anyways, that is it for this game recap of the preseason finale for the Seahawks. I would like to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. How did you guys feel about this preseason? I'm so excited, man. I am so excited for this. I cannot wait until football is finally back and the games actually kind of mean something. I can't wait till the 53-man roster is released on Tuesday, August 26th. And I'll be hopefully making a video on that very shortly. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. It would help me know if I'm doing a good job on these videos or not. And if you'd like to see any more Seahawks content from this channel in the future, please consider subscribing. That would be greatly appreciated. Anyways, go Hawks, go! And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Have a good day.